This is Isaac Prasad for PRM 612. The following video is going to explain working personas and explore the relationship between team effectiveness and empathy. Here is the agenda for today's discussion. First, we are going to explore what exactly is a workplace persona. Next, we are going to take a look at a case study which looked at personas as they related to a design project. Next, we are going to discuss if there is a correlation between teamwork and empathy. And finally, we are going to see if any conclusions can be drawn. Seth Lively along with Jonathan Leung and Ricardo Lungo, in their article Leveraging Workplace Personas for Employee Productivity suggest there are 10 common workplace personas. Achiever, adventurer, apostle, perfectionist, networker, driver, unifier, restless, influencer, and director. They go on to state, and I quote, "The employee productivity transformation journey must start with understanding the people and what makes them different, and in preparing my research for this topic, it was interesting to see what other experts identify that support a relationship between personas and team effectiveness. Although there are not many current studies surrounding this topic, I was able to find some research that approached the topic. Let's take a look. In 2015, Corinne Bornet and Eric Brangier, researchers at the University of Lorraine, conducted an exploratory study on the effects of personas on the creative process involved with the co-design of work equipment. The complaint at the time was research on personas rarely have real assessments of pros and cons. The hypothesis of the study was including personas in the creative process of design will have a positive effect on the creativity of the team involved with the project. Bornet and Brangier found that the team that allowed personas into the conversation improved the quality of ideas and the interaction and collaboration of points of view within a design team. Bornet and Brangier considered these findings to be interesting, however they noted the study had some flaws. For example, the two teams that were involved in the study did not have similar skill sets or number of team members. Bornet and Brangier suggested future research is needed to remove the exploratory label from the study. Data was also inconclusive as to whether or not teams that had identified personas performed with empathy as a driving principle. Although empathy seems to be a driving force for high-performing teams, the data could not support this premise, opening the door for the need for more research. Maren Haag and Nicola Merdem in their study exploring personas as a method to foster empathy in student IT design teams set up 8 different workshops to observe how software designers work with people that hold a different persona than themselves. Are the software designers emphatic to the needs of the group that is different than themselves? Although this is a software design example, the concepts and findings can be related to the building of effective teams, or high-performing teams. Empathy seems to be revealing itself in the research surrounding team effectiveness and personas. Much as developers need to meet the needs of various personas and exhibit empathy with similar or dissimilar people, so do teams need to exhibit similar behavior. In development, empathy is used and addressed in different ways. Empathy can be referred to as connecting with one's feelings. Others see it as a way to get insight into users' needs and inform the design process. If we were to take these same concepts and relate them to team dynamics and team effectiveness, the assumption is that empathy is seen as going beyond knowledge and involving an emotional connection between people and required to gain knowledge of the other person. The findings showed that software engineers find it difficult to empathize with individuals that fall outside their persona group, and intentional training is required. A similar conclusion can be made when developing and building team effectiveness. When placed in a situation where the software engineer were placed with individuals of similar backgrounds or like-minded people, the group's dynamics influenced the way the individual acted. Egocentric behavior was prominent with the engineers regardless of the different personas they were placed with. The authors of the study suggest that further research should be conducted on and how emotional engagement is essential for the design process to be able to find ways to accommodate it accordingly. Let's recap what I have discussed today. We first identified the 10 most common workplace personas: achiever, adventurer, apostle, perfectionist, networker, driver, unifier, restless, influencer, and director. Personas are defined based on a person's motivation and preferences. Because of this, organizations need to be careful as to how they derive the personas, so not to introduce bias. We next went on and looked at a case that explored if personas had a positive effect on the creativity of a team. The data proved there was some positive effect that came out of personas, and I attempted to correlate those findings with team effectiveness. The study also looked at empathy and its relationship to personas, but the findings were inconclusive. I then discussed another case that looked at empathy and persona usage in student IT design teams. The study found that students need to be given specific instruction in how to empathize with individuals that fall outside their own persona group, and typically egocentric behavior occurs. Given the research that was reviewed and the logical thought process that we have when working in team structures, it is difficult to conclude that empathy and personas are linked. Although logically it makes sense to think that workplace personas and team effectiveness is linked to how empathetic team members are for each other. However, the data that I reviewed does not back up the theory. All researchers reviewed mention the need for further studies to validate their hypotheses. This is an interesting topic and I look forward to future studies.